Hi, everyone, and welcome to this webinar, Delivering Happy Sole Trader Clients, an Introduction to Rounded for Accountants. My name is Oliver Garside. I'm one of the co-founders and currently the COO of Rounded, so I'll be taking you through the presentation today. It'll run for about half an hour, so conscious of your time and won't keep you too long. But today we're going to run through a few of the Rounded basics, should be a great help for you guys getting set up. I'll also stick around afterwards and answer any questions that you may have. And if there's any follow-ups required, I'm always happy to make myself available to give you a quick call and answer any specific questions that we may not get through today. So by way of a quick agenda, we're going to jump straight into a quick intro for Rounded for Accountants and Rounded for Sole Traders, which is the client-side file. There are two bits to Rounded. We'll look at the best way for you guys to get set up, how Rounded for Accountants works. We'll look at what happens if you were invited by a client and how to invite clients yourself and how you access client data. So jumping straight in, I think it's important to start with you guys understanding really the ideal use case for Rounded, because there are certain things that we do and certain things that we don't do. So Rounded is 100% cloud-based, which means that you do need to have either a device, a smart device, or a computer with a browser that is connected to the internet. We are available via any browser. And we are also available on iOS and Android mobile devices on smartphones, and you can find our app that's available in the Play Store and in the Apple Store. So Rounded is a cash accounting system, and we focus on the main features that a sole trader would need. Now, that means that there are certain things as well that we don't do, as you can see down at the bottom. So we don't have a balance sheet, we don't have a general ledger, we don't have a payroll system. So those are things that we have made a conscious decision not to build up until this point. We know often that these are tools, accounting tools that accountant tends to like, but from the client side, often our sole trader clients find those things very difficult to use and also confusing, and often they don't get right. So we focus on quoting and invoicing. We call a chart of accounts an expense report. We produce a P&L. Our debtors ledger is called a list of overdue invoices. We offer credit card payments, connection to over 170 banks and financial institutions. We can offer automatic tracking of GST and creation of activity statements. We have a time tracker, multiple other reports, client statements, recurring invoices, automated reminders. The list of features is quite long. Again, I don't want to talk too much or go into too much detail about all of our features and functions right now, but if coming out of this you would like any more information about exactly how Rounded works, then of course, as I said to you before, please let us know in the chat or get in touch at some point afterwards, and we'll be happy to give you a run through. So that's Rounded for sole traders. And by the way, if you have any questions at all, there is a Q&A module that you can use, or just use the normal chat module. Pop your questions into the chat module or the Q&A module, and I'll be happy to answer those as we go. So in terms of Rounded for Accountants, as we said before, there are two sides to Rounded for Accountants. The Rounded for actual sole traders, which is what we've just been through. But Rounded for Accountants has a few key features. One is allowing you the ability to manage all of your client files in one place. That's probably the main part of it. All of your Rounded client files, I should say. To be able to edit and export client data where you've been given permission to do so by the client. We also have an accountant directory, so you're able to create and control a visible public profile that's shared via our website. That's free, and you can also invite new clients. So we will jump in and have a look at all of those things. This is a typical look at a dashboard for Rounded for Accountants. You might find if you've set this up directly without having been invited by a client, that you have the demo Joe and Appleseed file. That's a dummy file that we've created just to show you what data looks like. And if you have been invited by a client, your client file will be visible there. So as you can see, it's just as easy as clicking on the name to switch between one or more client file. Now, a couple of quick things around Rounded for Accountants. The public profile is here. And this is just a free feature, the ability for you to be able to control the information about your business. Essentially, we get Rounded users asking us all the time, can you recommend somebody who is an accountant specific for sole traders, or can you recommend somebody who knows how to use Rounded? And they can come to our website, look at our accountant directory, and find a list of accountants who are already on the system. So you can put any information that you want, phone numbers, website address, other links to social media. We don't control or sort of gateway anybody finding and contacting you directly. Again, it's up to you whether or not that's something that you want to create. So going back to the main dashboard, the other key feature is invite client. Now, this is a way that you can pop in one of your own client's email address, somebody that you think might be suited to using Rounded, pop them a message and send them an invite to use to set up their own Rounded account. Now, there's a couple of benefits of doing that. One is that if they accept that invitation, their file is automatically connected to your account, which is great. And the other one is that you can offer them double the free trial. So when users come to rounded.com.au and they sign up for a free trial with us, they get 14 days. If you invite them in this way, you're instantly able to give them double that to 28 days or 4 weeks free trial. And to be very clear, when I say free, I mean 100% free. We don't ask for credit card details until the end of the trial, so your clients can trial Rounded. If they decide it doesn't work for them for whatever reason, they can walk away at any time without obligation. And if they require any of the data that they've input into the system, all they have to do is get in touch via in-app chat and ask us, and we will gladly provide that. So we don't no sort of underhand tricks or anything like that to get your clients to sign up. We're happy to let the merit of the account dictate the value that your clients might be able to get out of Rounded. So that's a quick overview of a few of the key features. Now, one of the there are a few levels of permissions that your clients can assign, which determine the level of access that you have. Now, the default level of access is what you can see here, which is a dashboard page that shows 3 reports: expenses, income, and the P&L. And those reports can all be changed to reflect a particular time frame that you wish, and you can also export any information that you wish to a CSV. And when you're scrolling down, so here's a great example. This might be an expense record that your client has entered where they've attached a receipt. So where there is a receipt, you're able to see the picture that they've taken of that receipt as well. And the same with income. Where an income record is attached to an invoice, you will also be able to see a copy of that invoice as well. So that's the basic level of access. That is what we call read-only access. So you can see everything entered, invoices where appropriate, receipts where appropriate, and you can export all of those with one touch to a CSV. Now, if your client has given you full access, what you'll see is next to the client file, this blue button that says open. And what this does is allows you, when you click it, to open up the client side file. And this is essentially what your client will see. And you can see the warning up at the top that says you're currently signed into whoever account it is. Any changes will be made. We do keep an audit log of any changes. It's not visible at the moment, but if we need to go back and find out who's made what changes, we can. And so this essentially transports you into what the client sees, the client-side file. Now, if you access an account this way, there's a couple of things that you can't do. So you can't change any default messages, emails, or templates. You can't update a client's business settings or anything that appears on an invoice. You can't send an invoice or a quote. You can't change the subscription level or anything like that. But you do have a great deal more access to their data. So essentially, a quick overview of where we're at, or of what you can see on the dashboard. The main financial year graph can toggle between income, expenses, or both at the same time. You can look for the current financial year or the whole of the last 12 months. In some cases, say if you're looking at the current financial year, Rounded will show you how you compare year on year to the previous month, and just hovering over different aspects or different parts of the graph will show you, as you can see there, where you're at with your income and expenses. And of course, this is a dummy account, so the data isn't particularly relevant to anything, but it gives you a sense of what everything looks like. Now, incoming money shows the status of all invoices that are not marked as paid. So obviously the total amount of outstanding invoices, the total amount of overdue invoices, what's listed as a draft invoice, any unbilled time from the timer, and what's the total forecasted incoming revenue at that moment. And if you scroll down, this is a feature that most Rounded customers really love because it gives them a snapshot of where they are for the current financial year. You can also toggle between that year and the last financial year as well. So to give you a sense of what that is, it shows gross income. That's inclusive of GST. It shows gross expenses, and one minus the other is how we record taxable income. And then inbuilt behind that, we've got the ATO individual tax rates, which shows an estimate of tax payable. And that is a rolling cumulative number for the year. So we can't split that up at the moment into quarters or into individual, around individual invoices or income or anything like that. But it just designed to be a little bit of a guide of, for our users about, perhaps what their overall tax liability is going to be. And of course, as all you guys know, the tax-free threshold is, I think, $18,200 or something like that. So until taxable income exceeds that amount, tax payable will stay at zero. So essentially, when you think about your own customers, Rounded customers are very, very diverse. We have a lot of creative freelancers, photographers, graphic designers, videographers, journalists, copywriters, marketers, that sort of style. And then we have a lot of sort of tradespeople as well, people who are much more mobile based. So a very different use case. But the thing that connects all Rounded customers is that they are all ABN sole traders with 0 employees. That is the target customer that Rounded really nails a brilliant use case for. So we find that we get customers coming to us, and again, just so that you've got context around your own customers. So it might be a customer that is currently using an Excel spreadsheet and a shoebox of receipts, and there are still heaps of those types of businesses out there. So they might need something that is more sophisticated and great for their business, but maybe they don't need fully blown, Xero MYOB or QuickBooks or something like that. So, it's a great way for them to take that step forward of professionalizing their own business. We often get a lot of customers coming to us from Wave and FreshBooks, also cloud solutions that are focused on sole traders. But unlike Rounded, they're not specifically built for the Australian market. So they don't manage BAS and tax and GST very well. So we find we get heaps of customers from Wave and heaps of customers from FreshBooks when a business registers for GST. And Wave especially, we find, goes from hero to zero very quickly. I mean, everybody loves Wave when they start because often it can be free if a user doesn't need to process credit card transactions. And that's very powerful for a new business. But being able to manage GST effectively is a different kettle of fish, and that's where Rounded really comes into its own. We also get a heap of customers who come to us from Xero, MYOB, and QuickBooks, and often that profile of customer is somebody who might have been put on one of those platforms by their accountant. But again, our customers typically don't have much in the way of business training. They're not accountants by trade. They're great at what they do. So they find Xero and MYOB super complex, overwhelmingly so, and to the point where it causes as many problems as it solves. And also the expense, at the moment, Rounded is less than half the price of a typical Xero subscription, and so the combined upshot of that is that it can be a little bit overwhelming. Now again, far be it from me to say anything bad about Xero and MYOB. They are loved by the accountant fraternity or industry, and rightly so, because they obviously provide a lot of tools that that move sort of towards that practice management style of thing. And so we understand why accountants might focus on those tools more. But I guess today is really about making sure that you guys understand that there is an alternative for you guys and for your sole trader clients as well. So a typical process might start with a quote, and our users are able to create quotes for their clients and send them off. Quotes can be marked as accepted or accepted online by a client. And if it is accepted online, as I'll just mark that as accepted now, you have the ability to be able to take a quote and convert that directly into a draft invoice. So all of the information from the quote gets copied over. So it's a great time-saving feature. With invoices, as you can see in the main invoice section, the invoices are captured firstly by status and then by date. So draft invoices first, anything that's outstanding next, and anything that's been paid comes under that. Obviously you can see at a glance in the main invoice section how overdue an invoice is. So that serves as being the debtor's ledger. So just an easy visual way for our users to see exactly where they're at. So once an invoice has been paid, it can either be signed off by and marked as paid via the bank feed, which I'll come to in a second, or partial or full payments can be recorded. And as you can see an example here, that those are date stamped and balances are updated automatically. With expenses, again, probably fairly typical. You can create an expense for anything. You can create vendors in terms of where you're spending your money. Expenses can be assigned to clients and included on an invoice. And where you've created an expense where GST is included, the same with income, that GST will automatically be tracked and added to an activity statement. Obviously, that's just for users with who are actively tracking GST. The other important thing about expenses is that you have the ability to be able to create bespoke or customized expense categories, which is a great feature. Obviously, we do provide a set of default categories that are there and ready to go when when an account is created, but at any time you can delete those, edit those, or as you can see there, add a new expense category very, very easily. In the income section, so obviously when an invoice is marked as paid or partially paid, that creates an income record, and essentially that's where income reports and all of the information in the P&L comes from. The two most important things about income is that non-invoiceable income can be added, so you don't need to create an invoice to be able to add income. You can just add income directly. We have a lot of customers that might, have an Airbnb or do some Uber driving on the side, and they don't typically invoice for that kind of work, and they're just able to come in here and add income. The other very important thing is that just like with expense categories, you can add income categories. So if you do have income from different parts of your business or from different businesses even, that you are able to create those income categories to allow you to track income from multiple sources. The client section is the CRM aspect, where all your client information is. There's probably a couple of nice features here which will show you how much you've invoiced and how much is currently overdue. By hovering over the client, you can also see that you can create a statement, and a statement can be created in two ways. One, just to show outstanding invoices and a balance, and the other is invoices and payments that can be shown across a time frame of your choosing. That can be sent directly from Rounded, or you can create a PDF and send that with another invoice, or you can send it from your own email. So a nice way of being able to keep your clients in touch with what it is, where they're at with, their bills and things like that. And users can essentially connect different banks and financial institutions. It can be done easily and quickly, and they can choose which accounts they want to see transactions for. Now, this is the bank feed section. What you're looking at in their raw form, bank feed transactions like these don't have any bearing on the dashboard as they stand. There's three things that you can do. You can ignore them, you can remove them, or you can add them. So, for instance, here we have an income record. So the user might say, okay, well, there's a payment from a client. I want to add that to an income. I want to credit it to this particular outstanding invoice. They can either choose to keep the description from the bank transaction or not, and they can edit the description like so, and done. And what you can see now is that income record is shown as having been reconciled. You can see which invoice it's been added to, and you can see which client it's been added to as well. So the same with expenses. If you wish to add an expense, yes, I'd like to choose that. Here's my category. Here's who I've spent the money with, and there's the description. You can choose no, there's no GST on that expense, or there is, whatever it is, and you can click done, and you can see there again the tick that shows that expense has been reconciled, which is really, really good. The other nice feature is the bulk actions. So, for instance, you might have a Telstra bills or something like that you might say, okay, well, I want to do the last 6 months. You can see that I've selected 6. I can add those. Of course, I forgot to say that with our new apportioning feature, you can also change how much is actually selected to be claimable for business use. And again, you can choose the right category, the right vendor, and choose to use the existing description, or you can change the description for each one. So super simple way to categorize bulk transactions at once. Unfortunately, at the moment, there's no way to do that automatically, but that certainly does help. And finally, non-business. So it might be that you have transactions, especially if you have a bank account that you use for personal and business use that you just wish to remove from the feed. So you can just mark transactions as non-business. That doesn't add them to the dashboard at all, but it does remove them from the feed that you can see. But if you need to go back, you can just refilter by non-business and go back and find those transactions. And they can still, from that point, be added to expenses or added to income if you've clicked the non-business button by mistake. So essentially, they're the main features of Rounded. Now, what we hope is that essentially we can persuade you that Rounded is a good enough solution to give one of your clients a try. So once once we've got you to that point, we have worked increasingly successfully with accountants in a very hands-on way to deliver happy customers. And the main way that we do that is being really, well, apart from the app being, providing a great experience and our support being second to none, we are prepared to work with you during the transition phase to do one-on-one or webinar-based onboarding where necessary. Also, if your clients come to us from either if they're currently using a spreadsheet or they're coming to us from another system, we're happy to transition their data, to reformat it, and to get it all into Rounded through that transition phase, so that the setup process and the familiarization process is as frictionless as possible. And again, we can demonstrate. We're very confident now, having done this with a number of different accountants and having had some really significant wins, that we can make that process super smooth, super easy, and it's one of the things that we can demonstrate that will make a happy client. And we're very proud to be able to say, if you look at places like the Play Store, that our rating is really good. As you can see, we've got a 4.8 rating, which is fantastic. And if you go to places like the Play Store and you have a look, you'll be able to see, no end of 4- and 5-star reviews of happy sole trader customers who are just delighted with the positive impact that Rounded was able to have on their business.